I can't believe he thought he could get away with doing some shady crap like this. I mean, you know what? Beyonce said it best.
What goes around comes back around. Hey.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Music Gauntlet channel. I hope you all are having a wonderful day so far, and today we're going to be talking about the latest album from Megan Thee Stallion called Good News. Born in Houston, Texas, Megan Thee Stallion would start pursuing her dream of being a hip-hop star only at the young age of 14, having a strong influence from her father, who was also a rapper. Crushing people at battle rapping and pushing her art along would lead to her getting signed by 300 Entertainment in 2018. And since getting that label backing, she's been more of an unstoppable wrecking ball than Miley Cyrus. She had already proved up until 2019 that she had a knack for combining sexually explicit lyrics with empowerment anthems. But 2019's fever made people recognize that she is not a force to be messed with, embodying the self-confidence and braggadocio of a Juicy J of 3 6 Mafia fame, which makes sense considering that's cited as one of her influences from the Texas area. And now we're in 2020 where Megan is just absolutely running shit right now. She would kick off the year with her Sugar EP containing the song Savage, which we all know by heart by now, gaining her the most traction on TikTok with a dance that was attached to it, so much so that it warranted a remix with Beyonce that finds its way onto this very project. But this isn't the only fame she'd be riding off of into the release of this album. She would also collaborate with Cardi B for the single WAP over the summer, which again was a huge moment for her. That whole week of controversy after the song was released was just an absolute blast for somebody like me that knows the song isn't supposed to be taken that seriously.
I said certified freak 7 days a week. Wet ass P-word. Make that pullout game weak.
Despite every controversy she has found herself in this year, she has always kept it pushing, always kept herself strong, and never showed to her audience or really anybody in general that she has a weakness. And that's what I love so much about her as an artist, because it would have been so easy for her to just be like, man, that happened and that is just a damper in my career, I'm just gonna take a little break. No, she's like, f that. I'm going to put everything into my music and let you know that I'm doing better than ever. So now closing out her hell of a run in 2020, we have her official debut project, Good News. Closing in at 17 tracks and having features from the likes of SZA, Big Sean, and Young Thug. Would she be able to close out this year on an extremely high note, if not the highest note of her career? Or would it fall short of expectations considering the hype built around it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can say it does come up a little bit short, even though at the end of the day I can pin it as an album that just really isn't for me. But that definitely is not to say this album does not come without its highlights. Something right out of the gate I want to compliment her for is the fact that a lot of these beats seem to be incorporating older hip-hop styles into them, which is almost like paying homage to them. And I'm not just referencing her obvious flip of Boys in the Hood. The track Sugar Baby, for instance, sounds like it was ripped right out of the mid-2000s, if not later 2000s, a beat that I could easily see a T.I. or Lil Wayne rapping over for that time period. The higher-pitched synths on the track Freaky Girls sound like it's ripped right out of the Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre era of the 90s West Coast. And it's not necessarily a paying homage scenario here, but there are a fair amount of usages of the TR-808 synth that sounds like a cowbell. And I only say that because I've heard it on a handful of songs that are current, like Perfect by Logic, Babushka Boy by A$AP Rocky, so it reminds you of that era, but it is still being used currently. And of course, the biggest throwback beat on this entire thing that everybody recognized pretty much as soon as they heard it, that was Who Shot Ya by Biggie on the opening track Shots Fired. A very clever sample due to the fact that she's addressing the whole Tory Lanez situation. I was going to refrain from talking about this out of respects for Megan and just focus on the music here, but like I said in the beginning of this review, the preface for this whole album, how she's just not shying away from any of the controversy and instead taking it head on. She's not scared to speak her mind about the situation and has a lot of shit to say about it. This first verse is so relentless, you cannot help but just cheer for her the whole time you're listening to this verse. She's just going in on him and rightfully deserved. All this dumbass shit that Tory Lanez has been talking about, trying to cover his name up and releasing a whole ass album about it, and she even addresses the whole tendons line, it wouldn't hit the bone, and all this dumbass shit. He's trying to get out of it, and she's just like, dude, you're dumb. I tried to help you out, but I'm not gonna help you anymore. You're on your own. And what's so great about this track is she doesn't even spend the whole track addressing Tory Lanez. She makes the second verse about how he's not the only weak person that's tried to take her down before and thinks that they can get the upper hand on her. But she sees the jealousy, she sees the envy, and she's on top of that shit. She's not gonna let anybody get control over her. I heard that she went at Tory on this album, but I didn't know it was the first track, and boy does it set up this album perfectly. I think it opens the album beautifully. I just wish she kept the momentum going for the rest of the album. I don't mind the track Circles. I think it's a nice follow-up to the opening track, directly addressing the women in her audience, saying don't let any man talk down on you. The higher pitched looped backing vocals remind me a lot of Drake's Nice for What, which I think was intentional because that was a man empowering women and this is a woman empowering woman, as if sending the message that we don't need men to tell us that we're great. It's good. She even sets down her own set of rules like Dua Lipa does, but it's just kind of like taking that second verse of the opening track and stretching it out into a full song. Considering the overall message of it though, I have no problem with it at all. But then we enter the bulk of songs that takes up a majority of this project that just straight up talk about sex. And truthfully, I have no problem with this at all. I mean, I'm listening to a Megan Thee Stallion album, right? What the f did I expect. But there are moments on here when it doesn't even sound like she's interested in talking about it anymore. Or more so that she focused that sexual energy into selective tracks and the rest were just, if they become hits, they become hits. No sweat. I like how Take Keith on the track Movie incorporates these wind chimes that sound like they're gently swaying in the background of the beat. But other than that, the track is pretty uneventful, with Megan Thee Stallion talking about how she wants to shoot a movie with you, obviously a pornographic one. And Megan and Dirk do not make a good pair here, considering the fact that Dirk sounds like he's half asleep on his verse and Megan Thee Stallion trumps him with her charisma. And of course, Dirk has the lines talking about him requesting this girl shake her boobies, and, you know, rap critics said it best.
Okay, how am I supposed to take you seriously when you still say the word boobies?
The track Body has these really sexual moans in the background with this creaking door opening, which I don't mind. I like the production a lot here, actually. But then you have Megan Thee Stallion saying the word body over and over again on the hook, and I don't understand how this sounds good to anybody. It sounds like a toddler saying the same word annoyingly over and over again just to get on your nerves. But somehow this isn't even the worst chorus, let alone the worst track on the album. No, that goes to Intercourse with Papa Can and Mustard. Good God, the way that Papa Can just drones through the hook talking about sexual intercourse, just saying those two words over and over, it sounds like an Operation Keepsake teacher that actually doesn't care enough to teach safe sex. It was an attempt to diversify Megan's sound, being a little bit more reggaeton edged, but even then it just comes off really bland and doesn't stand out whatsoever. Not all the sex anthems on here are bad. Crybaby's fine enough, although the beat really reminds me of Amir Vaughn's Keep Your Distance. And A Baby spends a decent amount of his bars just listing off women. Kinda just makes me wish I was listening to Cash Shit. Do It on the Tip works due to the fact that every girl present has their own personality and brings a lot of charisma, though it does sound like the city girls are trying to keep up with Megan's pace and wit. I do like the track she has with SZA, though it just kinda reminds me that we're getting blue balls waiting for that SZA album, that Absol album, and that Isaiah album. And it does remind me of WAP in the sense of those are two women that came together for a stellar collaboration, and here it is good, but then when you think about that track or have it in mind, it does come off as a lesser one, that being a track centered around sexual energy. But I can't knock it too hard. I do appreciate her acknowledging the fact that she can't be messing with anybody seriously due to the fact that she has so much going on in her life right now. And I do like that line when she says, driving so many men crazy, thinking Uber should pay me. It's pretty funny. And she actually surprised me a bit going in a pop direction with the track Don't Rock Me to Sleep. And that track is also pretty lackluster due to the fact that the chorus literally goes blah 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 la 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 bye bye bye. Like seriously, is that the creative level we're on right now? It just makes me wish I was listening to iPhone by Rico Nasty so much more. And while we're talking about the non-sexual tracks, the track Go Crazy isn't too bad either. I really like Big Sean's verse on here because it's a nice change of pace at that point in the record, and the line when he says something along the lines of people that are claiming to be his dogs but they're actually his pet peeves, like damn, okay. 2 Chainz also brings it, but it's not one of his more outstanding verses. It's just alright to me. And this album kind of frustrates me in a way because these last batch of songs, like the last 4 or 5 songs on here, end up being my favorite songs on here, but it's like, why did you make the rest of the album like this instead of just making them chock full of sex references? I don't mind the Savage remix being on here, the fact that it wasn't on an album before and she got Beyonce on here, I would do the same thing, and the fact that she makes a TikTok reference and it isn't cringy, that's an accomplishment. I really like the closing track Don't Stop with Young Thug. I mean, this glitchy futuristic beat sounds fantastic, like a chase scene from Into the Spider-Verse. Megan and Young Thug both give really lively performances, but yet again, I am left with, this is the last track on the album and you're finally getting a little bit experimental with the production. Why did you wait this long, and why is it the only track that does this? So overall, I'm gonna read this one line that's printed on the headlining newspaper for the cover art for this album, in which it states, in the midst of everything going on in the world with me, this album will be fun, exciting, and some good news. And sure, it's good news that Megan is in good spirits and making great headway with her career, and I do get a little bit of the fun part, but this project barely manages to be exciting. I don't really understand how you make such a statement and then proceed to make the album repeat itself content-wise track after track. It's like I was getting deja vu to listening to the recent Ty Dolla $ign albums. How many times can you mention Intercourse and the different ways you go about it before you're at risk of boring the hell out of the listener? Again, I'm not disinterested because she's making sex anthems, but she herself sounds disinterested sometimes making these kinds of songs. And the tracks that don't center around this content either miss the mark or prove she had other tricks up her sleeve she should have been trying the whole time. And in the end, it just comes out to be an okay album, and for her debut studio project, that's not really what you want. Sure, it gives the fans of hers the type of music that they enjoy hearing, but it doesn't do much else to diversify itself, and it's just riding the wave of hype she currently has. She has some good punchlines and some interesting production choices, but in the end, it's just pretty forgettable and not a project I could see myself returning to outside of a few bangers I might play when I'm working out or getting a little turned. I expected this project to hit me a little bit harder, and honestly, I'm a little disappointed by it, but like I said in the beginning of this review, I can just chalk this album up as just not being for me. If anybody says they enjoy this album or say they love this album, I would understand. It just doesn't come off as an album that personally I like, which you could say about pretty much any album, but in this case, it's tailored to a certain demographic, and that demographic just isn't me. I'm still gonna look out for what she releases next, but until then, I'm just gonna listen to the older stuff that I enjoy more. Now, this is the part of the video where I rank this album out of the rest of Megan Thee Stallion's discography, and usually I don't include EPs or mixtapes, but considering this is my channel, I can do what I want, so I'm gonna include Tina Snow and Suga. And with that being said, my favorite Megan Thee Stallion album is Fever, and I can already hear people saying, oh, how could you hate this album but like Fever? It's the same sexual content. And that's because I think Fever has way grimier beats, and it sounds like she was way more invested in making dirtier songs. Fever, more than Good News, reminds me of that 3 6 Mafia sound, and that's what I appreciate so much. And then in second, I'm going with her project Tina Snow. This isn't why I put it there, but the track Cocky AF absolutely bangs. And then in third, Suga, and in last place, I'm going to put Good News. Again, I don't hate this project, but it evidently to me is for sure her weakest. And for my top 5 songs from the project, I'm going to go with the opening track Shots Fired, and then the remaining 4 tracks Outside, Savage Remix, Girls in the Hood, and Don't Stop. And that is all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching all the way into the end. If you made it all the way into the end, remember, this is just my opinion. If you guys think this album was way better than I thought it was, let me know in the comments section, or you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, links in the description, and we can talk about it there. If you want to leave a like or subscribe, you know I'd appreciate that as well, and I'll see you in the next one.
If he ate my ass